Hey everybody, welcome to Podcast Demastered. I'm your host, Ethan Meyer, and I'm joined, as always, by my two very good friends, Wade and Chelsea. And today we're having a little bit of a bonus episode. You may have already heard Wade and Chelsea kind of talk about what they've been up to recently, some of the stuff they've been playing, and some films and TV they've been watching. Today we're gonna, all three of us, kind of gather and just kind of talk about some of the bigger news items that have happened in the last couple months since we've been doing the themed content. We haven't really been tapping into the workings of the interweb here, so we're going to use today to kind of just bring some of that stuff to light and give our thoughts on it and kind of just talk about it as fans of some of these things and just kind of like casual observers of the industry. So before we get into all that, if you guys haven't already, please like and subscribe the podcast, and check us out on social media on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Pod Demastered. And then you can also hit us up on our email at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us any comments or questions, and we can answer those on the show. And yeah, so let's just dive right in here. Starting with probably the most recent thing on here. This comes from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. He kind of talked about the rumors and given a little bit of background on the PlayStation Game Pass service that they have in the works. I think it's codename Spartacus. Did you guys see his article about that?
Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting, honestly. But also about time.
Yeah. So I think everyone knew that Sony had to be working on some sort of competitor, because PlayStation Now, which was their sort of streaming, half stream, half download of some of their older games and some of their classic offerings, just wasn't really working, wasn't kicking off, and just didn't have the allure like Game Pass has. So I feel like this was, a good time to kind of for them to reassess their offering. PlayStation Now, or PlayStation Plus, that is, I feel like has been doing pretty well, and not only just having people be able to play online. And everyone, pretty much anyone who has that console probably has Plus, I would say, for the most part. But they also have been doing pretty well with just their free offerings. I would say more often than not, they have a pretty good selection of free games. What I thought was interesting about this article is they were talking about how it would be a 3-tier buy-in, so it wouldn't just be a one thing. It would be, I think they had it where it was the bottom rung tier would just be PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, and then a second tier would be those same things, but also the backwards compatible stuff. Is that right? And then the top tier would be all that plus game demos. Or
I think that the top one includes every PlayStation console, including the PSP. But the second one only had
just
I think it was PS4 or PS3
and
games.
PS5. Yeah,
it's just PS4 and PS5 on PS Now.
Yeah.
Which have either one of you guys used PS Now?
No. Nope. It's so expensive.
It's expensive, and so correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't the PS4, PS5 games that are on there, those are the ones that you can download, right? And then anything that's backwards compatible or PS3 backwards, those are all the ones you stream? Or is it
but
the
I
opposite?
read though I thought it was anything if you played on the PS4 or the PS5, you could download them or have the option to stream, but you have the option to do it on the PC, but the only way to play them on the PC is by streaming only. At least that's my understanding. I tried looking at their website trying to get an understanding of like what is what. And
yeah, because I know when I looked I was going to do a trial of PS Now a while back because I wanted to play Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, but it was like it was stream only. And I'm sure there's people out there that have, unlimited internet and have fiber connections and yada yada yada, and that's great. But out here in the country, out here in the heartland of America, we don't have fancy internet, and we have data caps out here. So the idea of streaming these games is just not viable, especially for the price point. And, they're sitting in their fancy corporate offices making these decisions, but having most of your catalog be stream only is a fucking miss, in my opinion. So, and I think that's one thing that Game Pass has over them, where literally everything in that catalog downloads to your hard drive. And I think if Sony's gonna do a refresh of this offering, I think they need to do the same thing and have everything be downloadable. Because I think that's part of the reason why people don't like PS Now is they don't want to have to stream this. Because it's also, depending on the game you're streaming, it's not a 1-to-1. There's frame rate dips. It's not a constant, like, it's not a good experience for the, especially for like if you're trying to stream like shooters and stuff like that. It just doesn't work that well. If you're streaming,
you're always worrying about that. Yeah.
If you're streaming like Spyro the Dragon, I'm sure it's fine. But if you're trying to play like a last gen like shooter or something, like that stuff doesn't always work, or like depending on the game,
Yeah, you need that reliability, and that's a huge drawback.
Yeah. The other big thing that I saw on here is that Jason Schreier put on there that he said that it's rumored to not have day one launches for Sony exclusives, which I get it. I think Sony thinks that they don't have to do that, and maybe they don't, but I also think that that's a miss, because I think that's part of the reason what makes Game Pass an almost necessity to have if you're an Xbox owner, is because you get all of their games day one.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, that is kind of a bummer, but it's not a really big disappointment to me. I was something that I was expecting. I'm very I'm surprised. With Xbox they offer that and everything, but for like PlayStation games and stuff, what really does interest me is being able to play some of those older games, because I don't have some of those older systems anymore, and there's those games where I always wish I could have played, or I'd heard so much great like praise for that game, and plus then I don't have to get an old system out to play it or use one of the controllers, and I don't like using the older controllers as much, and they're so much different between the controllers and just
yeah.
It's weird, and sometimes I have the PS3 controller and the PS4. It's just, I don't know.
Oh,
it's
different. The 6-axis controller is the worst.
Yes.
It also weighs like 4 ounces, so I feel like I'm gonna like throw it across the room when I'm like playing.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean the idea of having their catalog from PlayStation 1, 2, 3, the handhelds. If they do make them downloadable, like that's huge. I'm wondering if they'll do the same thing that the Xbox team does with a lot of their backwards compatible games and optimizing them. Like I don't know. I know neither one of you guys are like big. I know Chelsea hates Microsoft and Xbox. So.
I do not.
Literally.
I'm just not the biggest fan.
Literally, vehemently against.
Yeah, she's putting it on for the public, but as soon as this mic's off, she just shits all.
Do not lie to everybody. Do not lie to our listeners. Just because I'm not super into something doesn't mean I hate it.
That's how
doesn't mean I won't give it a chance.
To Ethan, that's what it means.
No.
Yeah, that's exactly what that means.
Ethan, you can feel that way, but don't let our listeners think that.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because the backwards compatible team over at Xbox, they try their best to optimize them. They do frame rate boost for a lot of their games, their older games, and they really don't have to do anything to any of them. You know, they can just slap them on there and be like, all right, cool, go play. But it's like, no, we got this whole team just sitting here working on trying to take these older Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, and giving them this boost, giving them the frame rate boost, giving them a visual boost. I'm curious if Sony would do the same for some of their older games, because that it's just like a nice kind of like cherry on top when you play some of these older games, is just to have them kind of feel fresh and they feel new if you go back and play. I've this past year I've gone back and played like all of the old Gears of War games, and they just recently, within like the last month or two, went back and just put like a frame rate boost on all of them, so they all run at 60 FPS, which is really nice for games like that. And and they're all on Game Pass. I think Sony, if they're going to have their catalog, not only make them downloadable, but I think if they went back and touched them up and gave them some new love, just kind of freshen them up, I think that would also help get new people to buy into this service. Because all those games exist now on PS Now right now to play, like almost their entire like backlog of Sony like PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games, at least a lot of the hits, and that service is still like tanking. So I don't think just calling it something different and giving a tier system is going to make that much of a difference to get people who don't already have the service to buy in, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I personally
it's going to be interesting.
I personally won't get it until it is more of a, because if these rumors all pan out, that's not a Game Pass competitor in my book. That's not a must own service if I had a PlayStation console. Like, it's just basically taking two things that they already have and just giving you one price point, which that makes things easier for budgeting, I guess, but it's still the same middling offering in my book. Like, if they really want to take on Game Pass, I think they need to be a little bit more daring and a little bit more bold in what they do. And like I said, I think Sony thinks that they don't have to, and I think that's part of the reason why their services don't hold up and don't compete with Xbox. They have the studio recognition, they get the awards, they got the games right now, they got the figures to back it up. The new console selling really well. PlayStation 4 sold crazy amounts. I just don't have a whole lot of faith, I guess, in this new service for Sony to kind of push the boundary on it, if that makes sense. I think they're just going to rename a bunch of shit they already have, slap $15 on it, and just kind of see what happens.
Well, and then, people don't get it, and then they'll go, oh crap, what else do we need to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I mean, I would like to. There's no reason why they can't just, emulate what Xbox does and have all the Sony catalog in it. It's, they say competition, but I don't think it's gonna. It's not like it's gonna take people away who have Game Pass. Be like, oh, I don't want Game Pass now I want Sony Pass, or whatever the fuck. Like.
Yeah, I mean, in this current gen situation, nobody's going to be flip-flopping consoles.
Yeah.
Because there isn't consoles to flip-flop to. So they're going to have something right now, and then that's it. They're going to be stuck with that, whatever service they can get.
Well, then if you look in the like TV, how many streaming services does the average person have now? You know, how many people are paying for Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max and Amazon and, you know, Paramount Plus and Apple, whatever the shit. Like, put a plus in front of any network and people are going to sign up for it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think if Sony actually did this right, people would be like, yeah, add it to the monthly, you know, the monthly budget, you know. But I just don't think like rearranging all the stuff they already have and calling it something different is really going to turn that many heads, you know. So we'll see. We shall see.
Indeed.
Also, speaking of services, Wade, do you do the Switch service, the Switch Online or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing like just the annual plan, and then they did the expansion thingy, and I did get that because those sons of bitches put Ocarina of Time in there, and I can't say no to that. I mean, although when people are like complaining about like the price and everything else, I'm there too. Like, those are completely valid things, and where the hell are all the games at and stuff like that? Like the games they have on there are great. Like, they chose a really good amount of or a really good selection of games, but there's a lot more to go. So give them to me.
I think the thing that also a lot of the stuff that I've been hearing about at least the 64 offering in their service is that they have a good you know, the titles are what they want, but the emulation itself is like really bad.
Oh, I mean, when it comes to Nintendo 64 emulation, I'm just happy to be here. There isn't going to be some immaculate like Nintendo 64 emulation. Well, that's just silly.
I think the people are, and I kind of tend to agree, is like all the ports that they did for some of these same games, 64 games, they did 3DS ports for Ocarina and a couple others. Ocarina is like the big one that I've seen people complain about.
Well, it's not just a port though, because they also spruced it up specifically for the 3DS.
Yeah, they make it like so. But even if they took that same port and put that on there without the 3D dial, you know, the 3D aspect or whatever, that runs better on a 3DS than their emulation of the game runs on the Switch. So it's like,
well, yeah, because it's a newer game. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't understand. They should have just. I think Nintendo is kind of like Sony, where they feel like they don't really have to put in a whole lot of effort with this stuff because they just have name recognition. And I think a lot of people are kind of getting tired of the half-ass work they put into these things.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, but the thing that Microsoft doesn't have to deal with when it comes to like the backwards compatibility and like sprucing their games up is that their stuff isn't as old. Some of the, their old stuff is not as old as Nintendo and Sony stuff, which are completely different. Not even engines, but just flat out structure to video game. So you can't just go in there and like press the HD up button, and it doesn't like it's analog technology. It's a whole other different thing.
Right, but I think I think my thing is, and a lot of people who are bitching about this, is if Nintendo's going to offer it, then put the work behind it to make it worth offering, especially if you're going to charge a stupid price for it.
Yeah, and I'll agree to that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if these were free, sure. If they run like shit, whatever, they gave it to me for free. But they're not free, and then they don't even run well or right. And it's just like, okay.
I mean, they run just as well as the Nintendo 64 versions do.
No, there's like breakdowns where they don't even look the same as the 64 versions.
Oh, well, I haven't come across any of that yet.
Yeah, like there's like frame rate dipping. They got rid of the fog in Ocarina, so now you can see like the fog's there for older games for draw distance purposes. But like apparently it's gone in the emulation version, so now you can see how like terribly that game looks. And it's like stupid shit. So yeah. Yeah. Nintendo. Speaking of Nintendo, let's positive stuff. Miyamoto loved Odyssey, and he wants more Mario games in that direction. Wade, you're the resident Nintendo fanboy here. Do you?
I love how he doesn't get as much hate as I do for not being the Xbox fan.
We'll get to you.
Oh my god!
Wow.
that was spiteful. That's what that was.
See, audience, you guys can hear the ire in Chelsea. That's all that Xbox hate is fueling up. Well, if you guys can only see her.
Ethan lies.
All right, well,
anyway.
Nintendo.
Nintendo.
As far as like Odyssey goes, I thought Odyssey was great. I mean, like, really, I don't think I could come up with any complaint about it. It was amazing when it came out. They did lots of stuff to support the game afterwards. Like, you got to change Mario's dang clothes. You never got to do that before.
Yeah, that was like one of the best aspects of the game. It's just running around in goofy costumes, doing these levels. Also, that game was like the definition of polish. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it was excellent. The controls were amazing, and everything else.
That game ran flawlessly. There was like very little bugs, very little like any technical issue. Like, yeah, that was a masterpiece of a game. Mm-hmm. So he was talking about the next 3D Mario leaning into that Odyssey format where, you know, much bigger. Like some of the levels in Odyssey are pretty expansive for exploring and finding collectibles and this, that, and the other. Wade, would you like, so when you say, I guess, or when Miyamoto says continuing that direction, do you think that just means like bigger worlds? Do you think it means open world? What would you want to see out of another mainline 3D Mario?
I think an open world Mario would be interesting, to say the least. I wouldn't say no to it because I have no idea how they would, like, what they do with it. But whatever they chose to do, whether they want to go open world or keep doing your little mini worlds as Mario usually does, I think either would be fine. Because, you know, Mario is pretty middle of the road. It's never going to be awful, and it's never going to, like, destroy expectations. It's a pretty set anchor in the video game world, so, like, unless they're actively trying to ruin it, which would be quite a spectacle to behold.
Yeah, I almost want to see them actively try and make a bad Mario game.
I mean,
what would that look like?
Could they even succeed? You know,
it would still make like a stupid amount of money, even if it was awful.
Yeah, it absolutely would. I agree. What's it like? That's just, you know, it's just so big now. Like, there's no way that Mario's ever going to stop being Mario. Yeah. So whatever they chose to do with it, like the main Mario games, like, okay. I'll probably buy it.
Yeah. Mario is like a foundation in so many things. Like, even if you don't even play video games, like, you know who Mario is. So definitely too big to fail, I guess.
Agreed.
One of the couple of other interesting notes from that earnings call is they, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was like $500 or $600 million of them investing into like non-video game space, so like you know, television and film and whatnot.
Their theme park.
Yeah. So with that being said, what Nintendo IP would you guys want to see kind of make that leap into like film or television or something? Like, what would you guys go to for that?
Oh my god. Oh my god, I feel like I should be prepared for this question. If they could find a way to make a Kirby movie without it being absolutely terrifying, I'd be in for that.
Could they do like the Detective Pikachu like live action?
For Kirby?
Oh my god.
I'm terrified of a live action Kirby. I mean, absolutely, like, no.
A horror movie.
Yeah, I feel
like flat out like horror movie. But I know that they're making another live action Pokemon movie. I don't remember if it's supposed to be like Detective Pikachu 2, or if they're just moving on to like a different thing. But the first, like, with their first like soiree into live action Pokemon was like really good.
Yeah, that was a surprisingly good film.
and and that's one of those, it's like Kirby, it's like it can be really good or it can be absolutely terrifying if things just aren't gotten under control. Like Sonic.
Yeah. Which also, like, I mean, that's not a terrible film.
I know, I mean, like, the way that Sonic was supposed to look.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean, in terms of, like,
oh, yeah,
what the Pokemon could have looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But luckily, they brought in some, like, actual, like, Pokemon designers from Game Freak to work on the production of the movie, to make sure that not only were the Pokemon looking the way they needed to look without scaring small children and 31-year-old adults, also that they were behaving appropriately within like a world that had Pokemon in it.
Yeah.
Which is like cool, like good. That's how you should do that. Having Pokemon act out of character and all that would be awful.
I was thinking that it would be cool to have like a series for for Metroid, like a live action Metroid series.
I mean, yeah, you could. But the thing about Metroid is that Metroid doesn't really have a lot of story.
I know, that's what it'd be like. You'd have almost like there's story there, and then you can use the series to kind of like have like free range, fill in the gaps.
You could, but I mean, like, the thing with the story is that like there's no characters in Metroid. I mean, you have Samus, and then you have the aliens.
Yeah,
have Samus fights, and that's it.
Yeah,
they tell you at the beginning of a game, oh, like this is the objective of the game, and yeah, there you go. That's the objective of the game.
It's more of like a the world building is already done for you. Now flesh it out with characters and a story. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a blank slate for a creator to come in there and like have fun with it. All the hard stuff.
I mean, I suppose so. I mean, well, not even, because there's not like a civilization. There's not like cities. There's not.
Yeah, I don't want that. I want it like on a like almost like Alien, like the film, but you're just on like some abandoned like frigate in space. And
I mean, yeah, that would be about it, I think.
Like almost like a horror series.
Well, if you're gonna make a Metroid thing, it better be something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just wasteful. That's just wasteful.
Or it would be cool to have oh god, I just the Captain Falcon series, the racing series.
Oh my gosh! Ugh, no, thank you.
What is that? What is it called? I just lost it. Well, whatever. You guys will know what it is. The listeners out there, you can let me know. I would like that into a series. Just like a racing series.
I have a weird series for you.
Oh yeah, what?
Make those very funky WarioWare games, having like a Wario style like animated shorts.
Oh my god.
Like Mickey Mouse has these like really quirky like shorts nowadays. Have some of those weird little. Those games are so bizarre.
They're
There's
so
many
fun,
little
though.
weird things. Yes, I know they are fun.
They should have.
But I think that would work well.
They should have Wario do like the Olaf Presents on Disney Plus, but they should just have Wario just present all the different like Nintendo stories from like all the different games. It's just Wario like describing them. I would watch that. Like little 3 minutes of Wario sitting there trying to describe like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Or just getting into some type of antics, just, those little snippets.
Yeah, honestly, a show of just Wario and Waluigi, like some sort of like sitcom, like not live action because that would be horrifying.
No, animated. Definitely go
Sorry,
animated.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It'd be Danny DeVito as Wario, and who's some tall, gangly guy?
Chris Pratt. Okay.
He wishes
They'll make it work.
Aw.
It'd be like Benedict Cumberbatch and Danny DeVito.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
There you go, internet. You're welcome. The only other thing I saw in the Nintendo like report was that they said that there are no plans for any sort of another like Switch revision or upgrade for quite some time, and that they consider the Switch is just now reaching the middle of its lifespan.
That's fine with me.
Yeah,
one less system I have to try to track down and buy, and really it works for them too because of all the shortages and stuff.
Yeah, there was another thing in the earnings call where they basically had to change their forecastings, like their fiscal forecasting for this because of the shortages. But I mean, they're fine. Those things are still selling like hotcakes, even the base model. So. So yeah, that was basically it for all the Nintendo stuff for the most part. A lot of Phil Spencer doing interviews about stuff the last couple months. There's
he's been out there getting his big brain on.
Yeah.
showing people what he knows, that he's not just some dumb video game CEO, that he's people and he can do things. Kudos to him, man.
Pretty much. He reads books.
I, sir, know what a book is.
Yeah. One little interesting tidbit is he, without completely saying it in layman's terms, basically said that Elder Scrolls would be Xbox exclusive. I still am not fully convinced that they'll do that, but what do you guys think?
I'm kind of there too. I could see it maybe being a timed exclusive. But with such a huge thing like Elder Scrolls, especially coming in after Skyrim, I think that to make a game like that console exclusive would really be more like hurtful, I suppose, to the industry. It's, I don't know, like my I can't think of the real words I want to use here, but because like this isn't really a situation that I don't think that's really ever happened before, in terms of like this, here's the company, they have this huge game, and then they get bought out by like an exclusive party. Now what do you have to do with the game? It's just crazy. It's really hard to say like what's going to happen next with that.
Yeah. What do you think, Chelsea, before I dive in here?
I don't know. I mean, anything's really possible. Yeah, I could see the timed exclusive makes sense, but it really could go all the way and be an exclusive, and they could really try to change things up. But, I mean, it doesn't really affect me either way.
Well, I mean, by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, you may have a new console by then. Because that game's got to be a few years off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if we're getting Starfield next year,
Yeah, and you're probably
minimum 2 years after that.
Yeah,
at
sure.
Generous minimum.
Yeah, and even with, I would say, I would say that game's going to be closer to 4 years out from now, if I had to guess.
That's going to be my midlife crisis game. Good God. At this rate, I'm going to be 35 years old when that game comes out.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. But, like, okay, so I think timed exclusive is probably makes the most sense and would be the best bet for Xbox and for the industry. Same with, like, Deathloop. Deathloop comes to Xbox in the spring, so anybody who owns an Xbox can play Deathloop, right? I think that would be the same. I think that's the best way to handle Elder Scrolls 6. I think launch it in the fall, and then that following summer, open it up for, Sony. That way you get your early adopters. They have to buy it on Xbox. It'll be a Game Pass game, so people who already own an Xbox will already be playing it. And then Sony diehards can just wait 6 months. I think that's best for everyone. I think if they go full at it and keep it to themselves, I think it's counterintuitive to how Phil Spencer kind of describes what he wants from the industry, where it doesn't really matter where you play as long as you're playing. I think that kind of goes against his ideology to keep something like that was so widespread across platforms to himself. Mm-hmm. And I think that would kind of put a lot of ilk on the Xbox name, and it's been spending the last couple years, or more than that, I guess, basically ever since the last generation started, trying to rebuild that trust with the community, to get it where it is now. To do something like that, I think would kind of degrade their image a little bit.
Yeah.
In my
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
And this is coming from, an Xbox homer. Like, I've loved their systems and stuff since the beginning. But I just don't think it's necessary for them to make it exclusive to that ecosystem, Even though I guess early Elder Scrolls were basically PC exclusives, and then I think Oblivion was a 360 and PC exclusive. Isn't that right? I don't think Oblivion ever did Oblivion come to Sony later?
I think so. Yeah, because I had it on the PS3.
Okay. So early Elder Scrolls stuff, I guess there is precedent for it to be at least a PC space, but I don't know. We're so far past all that. I think just everyone's used to it being multi. Just keep it multi, and then just have Bethesda new IP like Starfield. Keep that under your umbrella or whatever. But
right,
I wouldn't take Elder Scrolls away from people permanently. Timed exclusives, they suck, but it is what it is at that point. Yeah, it's temporary, so it's whatever. Yeah. And there's so much stuff to play right now, so it's really not that. If you gotta wait 6 months to play Elder Scrolls, I'm sure there's gonna be 30 other games that came out before it that you can just fill that time with. Like, there's so much content out nowadays. It's hard. How can you even keep up trying to play everything that comes out? So, another little nugget that came out from Xbox was that their backwards compatible team that I was talking about earlier said that they've reached the end of what they can do, and basically, they can't make any more games backwards compatible. They've kind of reached the end of the line here, citing reasons like license is kind of a big one. A lot of games that have licensed music, they can't they can't bring those forward because those contracts have expired, and it's just a huge legal nightmare to try and hunt all that stuff down. Mm-hmm. Some games just have source code that is no longer in existence. Either developers or publishers don't have it anymore, or lost it, or it's corrupted, or you got, all kinds of different stuff. So he kind of went on a basically like a TED talk, essentially, talking about game preservation, and how the industry doesn't really have a body in place for it. You think of film, and you have the Criterion Collection, who has spent years restoring older films and kind of is just like an archive to basically keep film history intact. And gaming doesn't have that. It's kind of up to up to individual studios or publishers, or even just like game owners that have physical copies of shit, to just be like, yeah, I got to make sure this copy of whatever Atari game stays working, so this game still exists. You know what I mean? So kind of open it up to you guys. Do you think that developers and publishers need to spend more time in preserving their history and their legacies and their backlogs for just historical purposes, not necessarily to like repackage and sell, but just in terms of like, this is a thing we made, we want to make sure that it stays playable for future generations?
I mean, I think so. You spent all the time and resources creating it, and then people spent so much time with those games. They should absolutely be worth holding on to in some regard,
Because it's also going to get digital, the digital marketplace, digital ownership. All that stuff is all well and good for present time convenience. But all that stuff, you don't really technically, as a consumer, don't really technically own what you buy digitally. It's more of just like you lease it from them, and they kind of have the right to kind of take it back or shut it down or alter it or do whatever. And not every developer or publisher is so courteous with their stuff that 20 years from now, would they be like, yeah, let's just go ahead and take this back, or take this, do this or do that. Does that how do you? I think it's what Phil was basically talking about, is he is trying to basically start the conversation that this industry needs to figure out a way to preserve itself, and that's part of the reason why Game Pass is another great thing, is because Phil Spencer basically talked about how he wants to use that sort of emulation tech to preserve Xbox legacy. Now granted, that's just one slice in gaming's history, but someone needs to kind of get the ball rolling for other people to be like, hey, we need to do something about this, because this stuff's already kind of happening. Like the Mass Effect Legendary Collection that came out, there was DLC that wasn't included because that source code's gone. So that's just entire, you can try and go back to the original game if you bought the DLC or have a physical or whatever, and try and dig it up. I read some stuff that modders are actually working on restoring it, or have restored it, or tried to, or something like that. So it's a messy thing to try and think about, and it kind of blows my mind that not more publishers seem to take it seriously in the gaming space as they do in film and music and stuff like that.
It's a very, very interesting topic, and it's definitely, there's a lot of parts to it. I think, maybe to start with it, there needs to either be some type of video game preservation standard or something, or some type of group. I don't think you could always preserve every single game and make it playable for the future and everything. I think there's more of at least the knowledge that the game existed, or something from that game, because I think there's a lot of games where it's almost, they're playable in that moment, like MMOs and stuff. You know, some of those we wish they could be around forever, but sometimes things just end, and it's more of just like you have to play it at that time. And if you miss out, unfortunately, you missed out. And
yeah, speaking of MMOs, it's always fascinated me that when an MMO shuts down their servers, that there'll be these groups that open up shadow servers just to keep that, like City of Heroes. I think that was like an early to mid aughts MMO where it's just it's like City of Heroes, and then City of Villains was like an expansion or a sequel. And both of those got pulled. Server shut down, studio moved on or whatever. And yeah, and then there's just like modders and just created like these little private shadow servers just to like keep that game intact. And that happens a lot with MMOs, that these side groups try and figure out a way to keep at least a few servers online just to preserve that game, because if it closes, then that's gone, like there is no playing that.
Well, and I think of one that really is a really big one, and how there's not much of it left is Disney, their whole video game section. Like, they had an MMO in a sense, like actually they had multiple, and those were all shut down. And there's some of those where people have tried to revive them on their own little servers and stuff, but it's also Disney, so it's hard to keep something like that going. And then they also had things such as Disney Infinity with their toys and everything, where they had that online space with collaboration and everything, but once they shut down those servers, you weren't able to have those elements, and those are just completely gone.
Now you're just stuck with all those toys.
Yeah, but they're awesome. That was like my collection.
That was definitely a gaming industry flavor there for a while. Remember that was like, what was it, like
oh yes,
Disney Infinity, and then there was like Skylanders, and then there was Lego Worlds, I think, where you buy these like physical.
Oh yeah.
You buy these physical things and then you use them to play in the game.
And then the Nintendo Amiibos.
Yes, that's right.
Do they still do Amiibos? You would know,
yeah.
Wade.
Yeah,
I never bought an Amiibo.
I did.
Yeah. I currently have the entire set of Super Smash Brothers.
Damn.
Yep.
So what, 50 Amiibo or something?
You can go a little higher than that. Just a little bit.
I have almost all the Disney Infinity characters.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I got into that way too late, and I did buy like the 2.0. And I tried to get some because my nephew was really little when they came out. And he was just kind of getting used to playing video games, so that was something he could do and run around in, like with characters that he knew. So I think it was like the Avengers set specifically came out, like the very first one. So I bought him that, and then like just I think it might have just been extra Avengers on top of that. But then that, like right after that, was when they were like, "Hey, like we're shutting it down," and I was like, "Well, good thing I hadn't gotten too far into that endeavor." Because I was already too far past the point of no return for the Amiibos, so I was glad Destiny called it quits when they did, because I was too much longer and I'd be in that same boat.
Yeah, and so but that's definitely one of those things that there's nothing left, nothing to preserve, nothing to really show for. I mean, you can play technically like Disney Infinity, you can still play it, but it's not everything that the game was before.
It's also hard too if you have some of these like smaller titles and indie titles that don't have physical releases, they just have digital releases. That's not a good way to preserve if it's just, if there is no physical copy. And let's say that company goes under and that thing gets pulled from a storefront, that, there you go. That's it, wiped away. That's erased. I know it's not really a game, but what was that like weird, like, PT, or was it PT? There was like a PS4 demo that Kojima was gonna do. It was like supposed to be like a little tease thing that Kojima was doing to make whatever, and that's like that was pulled.
Yeah.
Wasn't if you if you got it downloaded on your console, that's great. You can never take it off because as soon as you do, it's gone. So yeah, stuff like that. Like I haven't bought a piece of physical media in this entire last generation because I just didn't want to like clutter up my space, right? But then when I think about it in terms of lasting impact, like it kind of is sobering to think that any of that stuff can just like go away, and it would, I just wouldn't have any that copy or that that tangible good anymore, you know. So yeah, it's definitely something that the gaming industry needs to take more seriously. I think they've been playing pretty fast and loose with with their history, and not every publisher or whatever is always forward thinking, which is great, but then you leave everything behind, and that's, from a historical context, that's not a great way to go about it. So
yeah, it's more of just catch it if you can, otherwise too bad.
Yeah, gaming industry lives by the FOMO code. So so moving on to the next thing here that I saw that was pretty interesting. Amy Hennig, if you guys know her, she was the creative director or like the main writer or whatever for like the early Uncharted games, like the first 3. Did she do Uncharted 4?
I think she might have started at the very beginning, but then left before it was.
Anyway, she was kind of the lead for the Uncharted series. She, interesting enough, she has like she had a film background, and then she kind of got into gaming, and you can definitely tell that she has a film background because her games are very, I hate the word, but they're very filmic. You know what I mean? They're very cinematic.
Yeah.
Anyways, she's working with Skydance in their new gaming division, and now she is said to be working on a Marvel game. Knowing her background, what Marvel character do you think would be fitting for her skill set? Or what would you guys want her to make? You know, she likes action adventure. She kind of likes these pulpy, like Indiana Jones kind of stuff. She was doing that. It was like supposed to be like a smuggler, like a group of like ragtag smugglers for like a Star Wars game, but that got canceled at EA. So now she's doing a Marvel property. So it's not announced what it is. It is an original story. So that's kind of the only tidbits that they kind of throw out there. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you like to see Amy Hennig do in the Marvel universe?
I think there's a couple possibilities, a couple ideas I have for that she could potentially do. I think she also does more of the, in a way, kind of grounded, really kind of like almost witty characters with a little bit of, little extra elements in there. Honestly, one that came to mind is kind of like the comic book version of Hawkeye, actually.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so I was thinking of that one. I'm like, it could actually be a fun game to play. I'm not the biggest Hawkeye fan, but I would be very curious to see her do a game about Hawkeye.
I think Hawkeye could be cool.
That's why he just laughs. It depends. If we're talking comic book Hawkeye, no.
Yeah, because that's the thing with these. Seemingly with all these Marvel games, Marvel's kind of just throwing their IP out to like any studio that's paying for it at this point. But they're not the MCU iterations of these characters. They are the comic, or at least they're not inspired by the MCU versions. They're not likeness. They're not supposed to be like in likeness of them or follow the MCU storylines or anything else. So, with that being said, whatever this Marvel game is seemingly going to be more from a comic book standpoint, artistically, more so than picking out, having Jeremy Renner as, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, if not Hawkeye, here's another one I can throw out there. Something along the lines with dealing like some of the Defenders, like a Jessica Jones-esque or even Daredevil.
Daredevil would be an interesting game. I've said this for a long time, that a Daredevil game would be really cool if they did the whole game where it was just his like blind like sonar vision. Like, don't do it like where other games where like the Arkham games had like detective vision where everything's like X-ray or whatever, and you can see collectibles and see through walls and da 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 da. But then you just have the normal game space. I would like a Daredevil game where it's just like the whole game is that, and the game world is like how he would perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be very interesting from just an artistic standpoint to design a world like that. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, think of all the money you'd save on graphics.
Yeah, like you'd have to rethink how you would design like everything. Like all the cutscenes would be in this as well. Like I think it would be like a very interesting,
interesting sound design too.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'd be really cool. It'll never happen.
Well, I think
that's
really, I think with cutscenes you could have like just regular cutscenes.
No, I want everything from his point of view. That'd be awesome.
You want like a first-person game?
Yeah, make it first-person Daredevil. It'd be like Mirror's Edge.
It'd be like Black.
You can always trade perspectives of the different people he interacts with too, but his would solely be that.
Or if it was a like if you had like a cohort with them, like in the Spider-Man game, you played like some sections as like Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the Daredevil game, let's say you play a section as someone else, and then like the whole game world is like fully like realized in like how in normal capacity. But then when you switch back to Daredevil, then it's back to like blind sonar whatever vision.
Yeah.
You'd essentially
be very interesting.
You'd have to make two game worlds on top of one another. That would be tough. That'd be crazy.
It'd be wild, yeah. Doesn't mean it's not impossible, but
they could do it.
Yeah. Those are some of my guesses out there. Well, I do have one more too, just because it's kind of but it's more of a you laughing at me collection of characters. You could do something with the Runaways.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, yes.
That one gets my vote.
Mm.
I could do a Runaways video game.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. I don't have enough background with the Runaways besides what small bits I saw from the Hulu show.
Just go watch all of the Hulu show.
No, I saw enough.
Just read the comics.
It's really good. Go read it or go watch it. I don't care. They're both good.
Yeah,
I'll eventually maybe finish the show.
I saw enough of that. I saw enough of that show to realize I didn't want to spend.
How much did you see?
Time with it.
How much did you see?
First episode.
Oh my God!
Like get
over yourself. No, you need to go watch more of it. It's really good.
The comic's better.
Probably, but the show is really good though. I promise. I've seen all 3 seasons. I think that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's legit. Like it's really, really good.
Yeah, I guess I do need to finish it so I can see that crossover episode with Cloak and Dagger. The only one that'll matter to me.
It is a good episode, but again, like it's really I really liked the show a lot. I waited very patiently for all of it to come out.
Yeah.
Lame, Ethan.
But it could be fun to venture out into the video games and have, some of those characters, are kind of witty, snarky, angsty.
Yes. I mean, they are teenagers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, all right, so Amy Hennig, action adventure, all of her games are always these, world span, globe-trotting adventures, right? Well-written characters, amazing like set pieces, very very bombastic, very Spielberg-esque, right? I'm trying to think of a character who would, like, honestly, if the game wasn't already in development, I think it'd be cool if she did Wolverine. But that's already, Insomniac's already doing that. I also think it might be pretty cool if they did a Black Panther game.
I'm surprised we haven't actually gotten a Black Panther game yet.
I think the idea that like that is a an entity that is kind of spans the globe in some of the stuff that he gets into, and just the combat style and would translate well to gameplay with Black Panther. So I think that would be interesting. I don't know. There's rumors that it's Fantastic Four, but I just don't see that being. Because honestly, like, anytime I think of Fantastic Four as a video game, I can just see it as it's sort of like a Marvel's Avengers, where it's just like it's 4-player co-op, and you get to pick which family member or whatever you want to be, and it's just just kind of generic. I don't know. I'm sure something can be done with that, but I feel like the game industry space would just see that, like, oh, 4 characters? Oh, obviously we know what to do with this.
Games as a service.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes.
So that just doesn't interest me, if that was a thing. I don't know. I think it's good that she's back making games again, because she is very her games are very well polished, very well written, very well directed, so it's going to be interesting whatever she chooses to do. The fact that it's Marvel is sort of less interesting to me, but I'd rather her do a Star Wars game, but it's fine. I'm sure that something cool will come out of it. Alright, so the last thing here was on N7 Day, Bioware put out a little teaser poster kind of thing with some art, and it had a ship. Definitely didn't look like the Normandy. It was just a kind of a nondescript ship, and then it had a couple characters. If you zoomed in, you could sort of tell that one was a Krogan, and then the broader design of the poster was sort of looked like a canyon that was definitely shaped like a Geth. And this is all teasing the next Mass Effect game, right? So BioWare still hasn't launched Dragon Age 4, and that was announced, I want to say, like 30 years ago at this point. And they keep having studio turnover. The creative director for Dragon Age 4 just left. That game still hasn't shown anything of note besides some concept art, a couple cinematic things here and there. No real gameplay, no anything. They've done some dev diaries. Anyways, so that game's God knows when that's going to come out. And then you have Mass Effect. First thing I want to ask you guys is, do you think BioWare announced Mass Effect too early? And second part of that is, do you think that they announced it just because they wanted to kind of make amends from Andromeda?
I think they just want to get the hype in as early as they can, just let everybody know that, they're still thinking about Mass Effect and they have something else planned. But yeah, the game could take years to get here, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I'm kind of on two minds with early announcements, because it's like, oh cool, you're making this, oh, it's 5 years out. Okay, why'd you tell me now? You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's just
that
like,
part sucks. Yeah.
especially when you have another game that you've already announced and that's still in development that still hasn't been released, and then you're teasing me about other shit that's gonna come out way later. Like, just launch the game you're working on, and then start your marketing for Mass Effect. Like, I think it was a little premature. Because I think everyone kind of just knew, like, that's really all BioWare has is Dragon Age and Mass Effect, so I don't think anyone thought it was dead. I think Mass Effect dies when BioWare does, and hell, that may happen after Dragon Age 4, so who knows?
Don't joke.
So, because that studio has,
In Mass Effect.
fallen from their mountaintop since basically Mass Effect 3, so... on a lighter side, with a new Mass Effect game, do you want it to be post Shepard storyline? Do you want it to be an Elsewhere story like Andromeda was? Do you want it to be a prequel to Shepard? Chelsea, I guess this is more for you because Wade, you still are early on in the,
I'm getting there.
in the Shepard verse.
Yeah.
So Chelsea, what do you think?
I want it to kind of, I mean, I think kind of from like the teasers we've gotten, everything, I think it seems, or at least hopefully likely, it takes place like well after the trilogy. And I would honestly like them to actually add some of the Andromeda stuff in there. I'd be curious if they have a creative way to tie things in, or, you know, either to help, it kind of be like, you know, we're redeeming ourselves for certain aspects of that game, or we'd like to say that these plot elements were actually way more relevant, and combining some of those things in Andromeda. Yeah.
Maybe they have a throwaway line in it where it's just like someone asks about that mission and someone's like, yeah, didn't that crash?
Sure. Maybe look at that.
I'd be fine with that.
No. I'd like a little more. There's definitely some things that were left unsolved, and
Yeah, I never finished it. But from what I understand, it definitely seems like they had higher aspirations for that, as in terms of not just that game, but possibly like a sequel, maybe a trilogy, because it definitely was left. They didn't even do DLC for it. Like, all that was pulled. So, yeah. So, yeah. I kind of would like a prequel Mass Effect game that takes place during the Tyrian Wars. I know they're not doing it, but I think that would be really cool because that's always alluded to in the games about how, like, when we first met the Turians, when humanity met the Turians, it was like this huge bloody war, and now we're just like, you know, all kosher, kumbaya. I think it'd be super cool to kind of see that flesh out. I know they're not doing it, which is fine. My biggest concern with Mass Effect 4 is if it's post-Shepard, then the studio is going to have to pick a canonical, like, thread to follow. Mm-hmm. And that's just going to kind of, you're going to make one fan group happy, and then the other 2/3 will not be, because it won't be their Shepard verse the way they play, they had it or whatever. I feel like that's gonna be a writing disaster for them to try and figure out, to try and to make that work, unless it's so far past Mass Effect 3 that whatever the consequences from that trilogy just don't matter anymore. That's always a solution to that. I don't know. They definitely got to pull out the big guns with Mass Effect 4 in terms of their writing, and I think there's just like a lot to. That game's gonna have really high expectations just because of the name,
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's also not an Andromeda sequel, I think people are going to also be more excited, just because not a lot of people like that. Chelsea excluded. I know Chelsea loved it.
I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if I quite loved it, but yes. We can definitely uncover that in a whole separate episode.
So I kind of want to go off the path here. If they were to kind of just throw a wrench into the whole Mass Effect machine and take it in a different direction, what kind of game do you think would be best for them to do? You know, let's say they didn't do a third-person action RPG. What kind of Mass Effect game would you want?
Well, that's like the best part of it.
I always thought that it would be cool to have a real-time strategy Mass Effect game. Like of Age of Empires or Company of Heroes or something like that. Like, because there's so many different species, so many different worlds, so much to play with, that it would be really cool to just have like a real-time strategy game with that. I love RTS games, and throwing one in the Mass Effect universe would be awesome. I've always thought about that. I think about that with Gears of War as well. I finally got it when they did Halo Wars. I love those kind of games, so I think it'd be really cool to have an RTS within Mass Effect.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or first-person shooter.
You all are the professionals on here, so whatever you say sounds good to me.
The other bit of Mass Effect news was that Amazon is going to make a television series. What is your excitement level?
I have no excitement.
Wade, are you chomping at the bit for a Mass Effect TV show?
If anything comes to Amazon, I don't care because I don't have Amazon. So
that's also a fair response.
And I already used my trial to watch the final Evangelion movie, so I'm pretty set.
So Amazon, please send Wade another trial.
No. You don't have to.
So when Mass Effect comes out, he can. So they're 100% going to just recreate the games, right? For the Mass Effect show.
Please no. Please don't. There's Mass Effect. The world is so large. It's just more than creating the games. We could see something completely different about all the side characters, about any other race. It doesn't have to be Commander Shepard, because it's like the whole purpose of those games was we created our own Shepard. We chose the path that they took, their background, their relationships. We don't need Amazon to also pick for us what their version is.
Jeff Bezos is going to pick his own Shepard, and it's going to be Chris Pratt.
Yeah, exactly. No. I don't need that white male Shepard. Oh, gosh.
Oh, who would be your fan casting for a female Shepard?
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow.
Come on. You got one.
I'll just say Emily Blunt. She's the first one that pops in my head.
All right. She did that, what was it, Edge of Tomorrow?
Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's the vibe I was getting.
Yep. I can see that. That'd be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully expect Amazon to just do the games, a bastardized version of them for sure. I don't think Amazon, I don't have any faith in them to really make any sort of high production show, high concept show with any sort of craftsmanship. So I am just going to, after this episode, erase this from my memory banks and never think about it again.
Amazon, please prove us wrong.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That's a nice sentiment. But fuck it, I don't.
Well, one can hope.
Yeah, and I just don't really want to. I don't need to see a live action Mass Effect if it's just Shepard's story. Those games were good enough. Just like I don't need a live action Uncharted.
No.
I don't really need a lot of video games to be turned into films. So we could just stop with all of it. It'd be awesome.
They've all been pretty rough.
Yeah. I did enjoy the Mortal Kombat one, but since Mortal Kombat is just kind of pulpy nonsense fun, and the movie was definitely just that, it was at least enjoyable in that regard. It didn't take itself too seriously. It's just like, hey, let's take all these wacky characters and have them fight each other in stupid ways for 2 hours. And that was perfect, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of these games that are very much story driven, like they're already good on their own. I don't need a live action watered down version of that story, you know? Those games are like, you could spend like 100, 200 hours playing them. I don't need 10 episodes, 10 hours trying to like retell.
Dumbed down version.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessary. But yeah, that was kind of the last piece. That was from N7 Day or whatever, so that was back in November. The only other thing that I saw entertainment wise was that that Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron film was delayed. It was basically taken off taken off the basically calendar for Disney, and it's rumored that Patty Jenkins is now working on Wonder Woman 3. So I mean, whatever, you know. That last Wonder Woman movie was pretty trash, so I don't necessarily think we need another one, but that's just me. But yeah, do you guys have anything else? Anything that's popped up recently? I know we could dive right into crazy stuff like the metaverse and Fortnite and nonsense like that, but honestly, listeners, I don't fucking know enough about any of that. I'm a fucking 32-year-old dad. I don't have time for the metaverse, so...
I teach children, and I still don't know what it is, so...
Yeah, so I just don't have... There's not enough storage in the old brain bank anymore to keep stuff like that in there, so... If you're a Fortnite player, Fortnite, whatever, that's great. I'm glad you guys are living in whatever new world that they've created for you. So... But I don't get it. So yeah, anything you guys got? Anything you guys got to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this little news checkup here. A little hot off the presses of months old news.
Right.
So, this isn't going to be a regular thing. This is probably something that we'll do, I don't know, every 4 to 6 months, you know, kind of just gather and kind of just hit some of the high points. So yeah, if you want to hear our thoughts on like some of the recent news stuff, you know, you can always follow us on our social platforms where we usually kind of keep up with the happenings. But don't expect it in the mainline podcast all the time. This is definitely just kind of a fleeting thing. So, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this bonus episode. I hope you guys liked it. Like I said, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you guys listen to podcasts. You know, we'll be back next week with a regular show. We're gonna be talking about the Game Awards. Because that happens, I think, this Thursday, as of this recording. So, but yeah, so stay tuned for that. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything, or want to ask us anything, you can email us at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. Like I said earlier, you can follow us on our social platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at PodDemastered. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we will talk again real soon.
See ya.
Bye.